Welcome to the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast, where we cover anything related to behavior change that will increase your long-term wellness and happiness. And now, here are your hosts, personal trainer and RNs, Matt and Jenna Lane.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast. My name's Matt.
And I'm Jenna.
And today we just could not help but have Mr. Andy Mullen back on. He was on episode 6, and we love this man so much. He has so much value and such a big heart, and we wanted to get him back on here. So, Andy, thanks for being here, brother.
I'm excited to be here, guys. Thanks for having me back on again.
Heck yeah. Jenna, you're supposed to be running this one, so do the intro. Go ahead.
We're past the t-shirt giveaway, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
We don't say that anymore.
Yeah, we're way beyond that.
Well, we got to do the gratitude point.
But they're more than welcome to leave an iTunes review still.
Oh, yes, that's true. You're more than welcome to leave an iTunes review. You will no longer get a free t-shirt.
You're not doing very well so far.
Because I'm not the leader.
I told you I'm putting you on the spot.
All right, well, this has been a great episode. This is the end.
Yeah, we're out.
Guys, please leave us a review. Anywhere is great, but on iTunes is very, very important. If you want to watch this podcast, go to YouTube at the BTYE podcast, and we're going to have the video version of this podcast. Every episode is a video version. You can also click in the description below if you're listening to this podcast only. We do at the top of this podcast hit you with our gratitude point.
Gratitude point.
It's a point that we make. It could be large, it could be small, it could be very minute. The point of it is to create perspective around your life, that if you're just down and out, to realize there's so much good in your life. And I will go first. I was thinking about this, that I had my first car for 11 years, right?
It was a long time.
It was 11 years. It was a Honda Accord, and it got me from A to B for such a long time. I'm so grateful for that car. I would honestly be still driving it if it not had crapped out on me. But it was a fantastic car. Having said that, I got my first new car a few years ago, and I still feel like Batman in that car. Because
it's a spaceship.
The car that I had was like a 2001, right? Or 2000, and I got it in 2005 or something like that. And then now to have somewhat of an updated car, it just, I always am so grateful getting into that car. It's such a safe car. So I'm grateful for that.
And it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks okay. Go ahead.
Can't see out the windows, but
yeah, smoked out tint. Go ahead.
As I hear the dogs whining in the background, hopefully you guys can't hear that. I'm really grateful for our dogs. They drive me absolutely nuts every day, but they've added so much value to our lives. And we've started a new morning routine where we go for a walk about a mile, about 4 mornings a week. And it's been cool to just kind of hang out with the dogs and watch them really enjoy sniffing the mailboxes over and over again when there's clearly no new smells. But they're so happy with the simple things, and it gives me a little bit better perspective, I think, when we're going on our walks, that they're just so happy with just going outside and going for a walk. And
they bring a lot of
think about like just simplifying my thought processes sometimes.
They bring a lot of peace.
Yeah, they do,
because of their simplicity. I love that. Good call. Good one.
Hey.
Andy, brother, if you have one, hit us with it. If not, no biggie.
It's kind of funny you mentioned you're driving a newer car than what you used to drive. And my gratitude point is actually that I can still drive. Believe it or not.
That's awesome.
So, because I didn't think I was going to be able to drive after my surgeries for a bit. And to be able to get around when I want to.
And for anybody that doesn't know, like if this is the first time tuning in and they haven't heard episode 6.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had a couple of neck surgeries to help with some grip issues with my hands and things like that, and fingers, and lost some dexterity. And so to be able to still drive to this day and be able to get from A to B is a real thing that I can honestly tell you that if I wasn't able to drive, it would be hard. It would be hard to be
Yeah.
able to always be in a good mood and to just be able to function on a daily basis. And a lot of people, I think they don't understand that when you don't have a car, it's not an easy thing to always have to bum a ride or, get somebody else to come and get you and things like that. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be able to drive myself wherever I want to go, whenever I want to go.
Awesome.
somewhere.
Awesome, man.
Good one.
Well, awesome. So, we had Andy on episode 6, and, Jenna and I have gotten to know Andy now for how long have we been hanging out, Andy?
Maybe 3 months,
Is it really?
It's been several months. Yeah.
3 or 4 months.
My recollection of time is just awful.
It's horrible.
But, Jenna and I were talking about just how much we love Andy, and I'm really filling your head up here right now, but just how much we love Andy and how big of a heart he has. And, I've talked to a few people that have listened to the podcast that don't know you that have said the same thing. They're like, man, you can just feel the good off this guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's so true. But Jenna and I were talking about just the social interaction or the perception or the
Perspective.
that that you bring and point blank of being disabled, and as I was just about to say the word disabled, like I started questioning in my head, is that the appropriate word? And that's sort of what I want to dive in and talk about is what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. When is it appropriate for somebody to say, hey, why are you in a wheelchair? These are things that I think a lot of common people don't know and aren't comfortable enough to ask.
Yeah.
Or they don't have a friend that they can ask that for, and I'll be honest, I think I told you that, there was one time where you were here at the house and you were getting your shoe off and I was trying to help you. I said, hey, do you need help? And then I didn't think anything about it just because it was coming from a good place. Mm-hmm. But I thought about it later and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a dick. That was so rude of me. And then that started sparking thoughts of Jenna and I and what's appropriate. And point blank, man, this is an uncomfortable conversation, but I think it's a very good thing to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, life in general sometimes is not the most comfortable thing for a lot of people. And ever since I was very little, I would honestly have to tell you, I had to kind of get through that myself. There's a perception that everybody with a disability, especially physical disability, in my opinion, they want to be able to say, hey, you can't do that yourself. You're going to need help. Not all people with disabilities feel that way. And that's just my opinion.
Okay.
So when I was growing up, even as a young child going to school, I went to public school just like everyone else. I didn't, back in the day, I'm older, so not everybody had special schools or you couldn't be homeschooled. You went to public school just like everybody else. Now, cerebral palsy affects me in ways that it may not always affect other people with cerebral palsy. So mentally, it affects me a little bit. I wasn't the smartest student in school. If I went to read something in a textbook, I couldn't just read 3 or 4 lines and understand it. I would have to kind of read it again, stop and think about it, and probably read it a 3rd time before I actually comprehended it. What was that, sentence trying to tell me? So it affected me with my schoolwork.
Okay.
I was probably like a C student at best, but I did love the PE part of it.
Really?
I loved to play basketball when I was younger, and made a lot of friends that way, and some enemies along the way because they didn't think I could score, and I did anyway. So it is what it is. But anyway, in all seriousness, when I was younger, you had three kinds of people that I interacted with mostly. Those are the ones that felt sorry for me, and then those are the ones that teased me, and then there's the ones that just saw me for Andy. And that was a smaller group. People that could look beyond the physical part of he's disabled. They would say, hey, he's disabled, but he's a good dude, and he's got a lot of personality. you know, and I made a lot of friends that way. I really did. And I'm very, you know, I'm just very grateful that I have that kind of personality to where I can honestly say to some people, hey, thank you for being my friend and for seeing past, you know, my shortcomings or weaknesses, as some people would probably seem that, you know. But it is what it is. I don't complain about things like that. And I'm just grateful, honestly grateful for the people that, you know, have crossed my path in my lifetime so far. And I can't say enough good things about, you know, just my friends. You know, family is one thing because that's who is supposed to love you.
Right.
But to be able to go out and make friends on your own and influence friends in such a positive way is another thing, you know. So about a year and a half ago, Craig and I were actually walking into trivia, and I hear this voice behind me, and this guy goes, "Hey, Andy Mullen, what's going on?" And I turn around, and he's like, "You don't remember me?" I said, "Yeah, sorry." He goes, "I'm John." He goes, "I'm John Bothwell from high school." I said, "Oh, hey, John, how are you?" He goes, "Man, we used to play basketball all the time together." I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Man, and I got to tell you, you're one of the best basketball players I've ever played against." I was like, "Oh, you're just saying that. You're just saying that." He goes, "No, seriously, dude." So I hadn't seen the guy in like 30 years. Literally, hadn't seen him in 30 years. Probably played against him once or twice. So he walks into the restaurant with me because he's going to trivia too, you know. And he introduces me to Brandy, his wife, and his two kids, and his mother-in-law. And he instantly starts talking about me. "Oh, man, back in the day, man, I went to shoot basketball. I was out there at Pine Forest High School, and we were shooting basketball, and this is the first time I ever saw you." I was asking the guys, "Hey, should I guard this guy?" And they're like, "Yeah, you better, because if you don't, he's going to score on you." Mm-hmm. And John's like, "Well," I thought to myself, "Yeah, we'll see. We'll see." He goes, "Man, you got out there and you hit the first outside shot. Then you hit a second outside shot. And then you went inside and you scored on me." And he was like, "Holy cow." You know? And he's just like bragging about me the whole time. And I was like, "Oh, man, I miss those days." But thanks, John. And anyway, long story short, because of my disability and not being able to walk anymore, my good friend in Texas, who's a phenomenal hairdresser, his name's David Troy. He works out of New Braunfels, Texas. Is right outside San Antonio. We talk every once in a while because I lived in that area for 4.5 years or so, and we talk probably once a month, and we stay in touch with one another. And he knows about all my physical operations that I've had over the last couple of years. And he called me up one time, and you know, he'd say, "Listen, man, you got to let me buy this special chair that you want, you know? You got to let me open up a Facebook page, GoFundMe account for that." And I said, "No, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out." And he would just constantly, every other month, every other conversation we would have, he would ask me to let him do it. And so anyway, I was actually sitting at trivia back in the middle of July this year. And I was telling Jenna about it, talking about how great David was as a person. And he literally, not even joking, he calls in the middle of the conversation. I was like, man, his ears must have been burning something fierce. And he goes, "Listen here, dude, I am just going to open that GoFundMe account for you right now. I don't care what you say. I just need your address." And in a moment of weakness, I said, "Okay, David, if that's what you want to do, we'll do it." Okay, man. So that was trivia ended at about 9 or so, and I dropped Craig back off at the house and headed to the gym. And I was leaving the gym at about 10:30 that evening, and I opened up my Facebook page, and there it was, posted it on my timeline. "Hey, this is my buddy Andy. He's a great guy, you know, and this is what is going on with him. I'm asking you to help him out." So he opened up that Facebook page for me, set the goal at $2,500, you know. And so that was a Tuesday night, and I'm not even joking. by Wednesday, the very next day at noon, the Facebook page had already raised over $2,500.
Wow.
I remember.
I mean, I had people from high school, people that it was just amazing. It's the most amazing and most generous thing that I've ever experienced in my whole entire life.
Yeah.
You know, to have that many friends and people that know you, you know, whether they're family or friends, to actually go out of their way to donate to my cause, just spoke volumes.
Well, I think it's a testament to how wonderful you are as a person, that all these people's lives that you've touched over the years, they immediately wanted to give back when they had the opportunity.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was just I'm still to this day, 2.5 months later, I'm still kind of in awe of it. And the reason I speak of John Bothwell, who he's a local business owner here in Pensacola. He and his father own Air Masters, air conditioning, great company. He's one of the best guys and most generous guys I've ever met, you know, and just that, you know, reconnection after 30 years of not seeing him or speaking to him, you know, I call him up to say, hey man, thank you so much for your generous donation from you and Brandy. And he goes, listen, when I saw that this morning, he goes, I leaned over to Brandy and said, listen, I'm definitely getting in on this. And he actually thanked me. He goes, it's my honor. I'm like, are you kidding me, man?
Wow.
I said, I'm honored, you know? And you can't find enough good people just like that, that, you know, they do things out of their kindness of their heart.
Right.
You know? And I thought after everything was said and done, I always thought to myself, I said, when you put things out there that are good in the world and you treat people like you would want to be treated, then eventually you're going to get good karma back. And that was, in my opinion, in my mind, that was just my reward for always treating people like I would want to be treated. You know, whether it was 20 years ago, 2 days ago, you know, 30 years ago, like it was with John. And I'm still to this very day just blown away. When I sit in that chair and I use it probably 3 hours a day, you know, 3 or 4 hours a day, to me, I'm just so thankful for everyone, that whether it was $5 or $500, I'm just so thankful for everyone for doing that for me. I mean, to me, that speaks volumes of how people feel about me. Yeah. And I'm not trying to brag, but I've always tried to be a good person. You know, I've really tried to work hard on trying to be a good person. And that's the reward that I received for being a good person. Yeah. And I think that's important for everyone to try to be like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to say try to satisfy everyone. You can't, because you can't do that, you know? And, but if you do enough good things, little things, you know, you say hi, you say thank you, you say please. It's the little things like that.
Yeah, they add up.
And when you treat people with respect, and they remember that.
Yeah.
They remember that.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think something that you've mentioned before is that you know that you always have eyes on you. And because of that, I think you're able to put that good out there even more easily, because you know that there's eyes on you. You're putting that good out there for other people to see even more easily than, you know, a good heart from somebody else.
I'm very aware. Molly, the personal trainer that Matt introduced me to, she actually mentioned that to me the first time that we met. And she's like, man, she was impressed by the gym that we go to. And she was like, I can really tell that you probably inspire a lot of people. I think that's basically the word she said. And I was kind of saying, wow, she picked that up from just like, I've known you for like 10 minutes. And she already had picked that up. You know, she goes, man, you must really inspire a lot of people in here.
It's because you put it off so much.
Yeah.
That's what you put off.
Yeah, I try to do it in a positive way, you know, because when you get teased a lot,
Who the hell would tease you? And can I find them? Yeah. Will you let me know who that is?
Well, when I was a kid,
right?
When you get teased,
no, that's okay. They're adults now,
and people have a tendency. Sometimes I would try to change that, use that to my advantage.
How so?
So you want to tease me? You want to make fun of me? Well, that's okay because I'm going to do it anyway. You don't think I can shoot a basketball? Here's what I can do. You don't think I can throw a football? Here's what I can do.
So what was it said? Was it done? What was the teasing?
A lot of it was just, they would physically try to imitate how I walked.
Really? Good.
And that was pretty rough to see. But you get over those kind of things, because to me, those are the types of people that, one of these days, if you're going to be like that towards people, it's going to come back on you.
Yeah. That's true.
That's just my opinion. But like I said, it's one of those things where you kind of have to do your best to try to not think of it that way. You know what I'm saying? You can't let it influence you or make you sad.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you ever sort of fire back at any moment ever? Did you ever get frustrated and yell at somebody or throw?
Well, for me to be able to say something to somebody, especially when you're not that strong and you're physically disabled, how about if they want to get in a physical confrontation with you, if you were to say something back to them, probably not a good thing. So for the most part, I would just.
So you felt limited and unable to fight back.
Yeah, a lot of times I would just kind of like, okay, and just let it go. What can you say? What can you do?
But do you see right there?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even have that perspective to understand that. Like, in my head, I'm like, no, screw that, I'll fight. Like, because I don't have that perspective. Do you understand what that probably taught? No. Do you understand what that taught someone out there just then?
Yeah, I do. I do.
You just taught me.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where I've always had a very self-awareness of not only what other people may perceive me as, but I'm also very aware of what my limitations are. You're not going to see me getting up on any kind of ladders or anything like that anytime soon, because I know I don't want to put myself in that kind of position to where I might fall and hurt myself.
Sure.
And that's a real thing that I have to think about constantly. I have had some incidences where I remember when I was in high school, I was with some friends and we were walking around the mall and stuff like that. And we kept passing these other three guys on the other end of the mall, and we passed them about 2 or 3 times. And all of a sudden, they just show up in front of us. And the guy is in tears. He's literally in tears. He's probably he's probably in his teens like we are, maybe a little younger. And he had 2 other friends with him, and he's crying, like physically crying. His eyes are red, and he's got tears running down his face. And I'm like, hey, man, are you all right? And he goes, man, I just want to say that I'm very sorry. And I say, sorry for what? He goes, well, I was making fun of you and the way you walk. And my 2 buddies here said that they're not going to allow it. And if he didn't go over and apologize to me right then, they were going to leave him, take off.
Wow.
And to me, that happened 35 years ago. And to this very day, I still think about that.
Really?
And that's something that's always kind of affected me a little bit,
Huh.
But that's always made me very self-aware, that, and if people want to tease me and make fun of me and things like that, as long as they're not doing it to my face, and even if they do it to my face, then you got bigger problems than me, man. That's just the way I see it.
Well, bro, if we're ever in the same area, just don't let me know that they're making fun of you, because there will be problems.
I appreciate that, Matt.
There will be problems.
It's always good to have good friends that always have your back.
Yeah, man.
But I honestly don't have any negative anything anymore. I guess because I'm older and they can't really tease me anymore.
Yeah.
Well, something you said earlier that was impactful was that, how someone feels about you is more of a reflection of them than it is about you.
It is.
And I think that's
big.
That's a lesson that it's taken me my entire life to realize.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important for most people to really realize that how anyone feels about you is more of a reflection of them than it really is about you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not perfect by any means, but I do try to be respectful, and I do try to make more friends than enemies. And to me, that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know, like, when you may cross paths with that person again. And John Bothwell is a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, had I been a jerk to him or vice versa, we would have never been friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
And he's got a high work integrity, and he's probably one of the nicest and smartest guys I've ever met. You know, we both have a hate for clowns, so that's a good thing.
Okay.
You can add me to that list.
Yeah. I do not like clowns. I don't know why I just said that, but we do have that like in common. Big time. Sorry about that, Grandpa Bert. I apologize if you're listening to this podcast. He's actually a clown. I've never actually seen him in his clown outfit, but he is actually a clown. But he's the sweetest man. He's like 93 and still getting around, man. I'm telling you, man, that man is like the Rock.
Huh.
He really is. He really is. My best friend John Burt, that's his grandpa. And I have such a great relationship with John and Amanda Burt that his grandpa says, "No, you call me Grandpa." I was like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "No, you just call me Grandpa. You don't call me sir. You don't call me anything
Just
else.
Grandpa.
Just Grandpa. We're good." I was like, "Yes, sir." Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so I have some specific questions for you. And I know we've kind of talked about them ahead of time, so I don't want to get off track and not re-talk about them now that we're actually being recorded. Something that stuck out to me in a conversation we had a couple weeks ago was that you feel like you have eyes on you a lot. And I think I know I'm a curious person, so, you know, thinking about if I didn't know you and saw you out, what I would be thinking about as far as, you know, my curiosity of what happened to you or what your background is or how you feel about how you got here or how, you know, that sort of thing. And I'm curious how, you know, like if you were to look up and see me curiously thinking about you, looking at you, like what your perspective is as far as, because you do say that you have a lot of eyes on you often.
Yeah. Well, I would rather someone, whether you knew me or not, just to come over and ask me.
Really, and that was actually going to be one of my questions was, and I think I said at the top of the show, when is it appropriate for somebody to be like, "Hey man, what happened? Why are you in a wheelchair?" Because for someone that's not in a wheelchair, it's like, it's a little uncomfortable. Even though you're my friend, it's still a little uncomfortable for me to say on these mics right now.
Yeah.
You know,
I would rather them just be honest and upfront
really,
than assume things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had people go, "Were you in a bad car accident?"
oh, that's
Yeah, no, not really, but you know, and that's all right. But I would rather them just, and I'll tell them straight up, you know, "Hey, I was born with cerebral palsy."
right.
You know, do you have any other questions?
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, it's very similar to somebody with their arm in a cast. Like, "Hey bro, what'd you do?" It's just a little different, obviously.
It's human curiosity, but I think it's kind of almost taboo to ask questions.
It absolutely is taboo.
Is. I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable about asking me sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe, like, for me, it was just a place of respect, and it was like, I think most people don't want to ask it because they feel like it's probably a pain point, which, when you really think about that, that's a little messed up, because, like, does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, like, I think that most people won't ask the question because they're fearful that it's a pain point and that the disabled person will fire back with like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I'm sure they've probably had some interactions with that too.
Okay.
I would, for the longest time when I was able to walk, and this is the honest truth, I would forget that I was disabled because I'm just used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone would remind me, and it's usually the little 3-year-old kid that says, Mommy, why is that man walking kind of funny? You know, and they're like, shh, honey.
What does that do to you? What is it like? Do you shrug that off? Is that offensive?
Probably for the first 20 years of my life, it was a little rough. And the mother or the father would apologize. And I was like, no, don't worry. I understand it's just curiosity. But that's a real thing that I had to live through.
So from your perspective, what would be the proper response from the parent? Because, I mean, kids are very curious.
Yeah, did that make it worse whenever the parent was like, oh, I'm sorry, wait, and like over? No? Okay,
no,
good.
It didn't. Because there again, I know it's coming from a good place.
Gotcha.
And I would rather them, let's be honest about this conversation. Let's be, I know that the child did not mean anything by it in a bad way. He's curious. She's curious. I get that, and the parent apologized, which, I think was the appropriate thing to say. And I would say, no problem. Thank you. And if the kid wanted to ask me straight up what, I would tell them. I would tell them, it's kind of not funny, but I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was just like 2013. And this is another incident where it has really affected me in such a positive way. My mom and I and my niece were at a bagel place that we frequented. And I remember one Sunday morning, I was standing at the counter and I see a mother and a young girl. She was probably 6 or 7. And then the mother was behind the girl and she was carrying her other child in the car seat. And the door just happened to be open. And the little girl had crutches, metal crutches. She's like 6 or 7 years old. And you could tell that she had cerebral palsy. And I wanted, in that moment, I started tearing up really bad because I know what kind of life she's about to lead. But what made me so happy to see her in that moment was the smile on her face, knowing that she was about to get a bagel. And I'm telling you, it lit the room up in such a positive way. And it affected me. I wanted so badly to just walk over to her and introduce myself and give her a big hug because I was her when I was her age.
Okay.
That's the same person. I saw myself in that very moment, and to see that smile on her face was just like, man, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you could tell when I watched her mother come up to the counter and she actually kneeled down to her daughter and she asked her what she wanted. And I could just sense the patience in the mother and I know how difficult her life must be having a child with cerebral palsy, and that gave me a lot of perspective in that very moment.
Okay.
It really did. And like I said, that happened in like 2013. And even to this day, I still think about the girl. I don't know what her name was. And I just remember that 2 minutes of interaction that I watched her. And I thought to myself, man, that's a beautiful child.
Yeah.
And I wish the world could see that. I wish more of the world could see that.
Yeah.
Because when I was her age, it was in the 80s. And yeah, people aren't as sensitive to bullying like they are now.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
Well,
that's very true.
I honestly believe through these conversations, that's how you can educate or show the world. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because I would have never known that story. And there's no way I would have ever known that story had not having this conversation.
Yeah.
So whoever listens to it has heard it.
Yeah. I'm not trying to tell people how to live their lives or, I just want them to know that people with disabilities, we just wanted, at the end of the day, we just want to be treated like a normal person with some exceptions. Yeah, we're going to need help getting into restaurants. Yeah, you might have to open the door for us. or help us do certain physical things, and make exceptions because we can't get upstairs.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think all people with disabilities just want to be treated like a regular human being.
Sure.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, having lived all over the country, is there different reactions in different regions of the country? Like, I feel like Southern people would be more aggressive as far as trying to ask you if you need help.
Can I help you, honey?
Yeah.
Southern people are very, very conscious about that. They seem to be a little bit more forward in the way of always trying to help me if they see that I may need help. But I've been in a couple sticky situations where, like, I know this person or I know of this person. So my thing has always been to just kill them with kindness. And then how are you going to be mad? Or how are you going to try to treat me different? Or how are you going to try to make me feel uncomfortable when you can see that I'm a very nice person? Within the first 30 seconds of meeting them, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry you're like that. But then they understand. Then they just see that you're a regular person on the inside. And next thing you know, you're buddies. So
The sticky situation. How do you mean?
just
Apologizing that piece?
yeah,
Okay.
just
Gotcha.
people always apologizing for, and I'm not super religious, but I've actually had people come up to me and they want to pray for me and they think that, my disability is a crutch and this, that, and the other. And I appreciate that, but that makes me feel uncomfortable, especially in public.
Isn't that is that offensive for somebody to come up and say, I want to pray for you?
It's not offensive,
Okay.
but it does make me feel very uncomfortable, especially if you're a complete stranger.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, and that if you choose to be that, that forward with your religious beliefs, and I understand that it's coming from a good place. I've had a couple people over the years do that to me, and it just makes me feel very uncomfortable, more so than I've ever felt uncomfortable for.
I
before in my
can
life.
only
Yeah.
imagine. That's
Maybe it's because I'm not really religious. Holden Hardman, we need you to weigh in on this conversation.
well, but I think, if that's your religion, you can certainly pray for someone yourself and keep it to yourself. I think, most religions would believe that your prayer is just as effective to yourself as it would be.
Right.
But I've
with the other
actually, when
person.
they want to put their hands on me and physically pray for me right there on the spot in the middle of a grocery store. And, it's a little rough.
I don't know how I would react to that. I mean, what have you said?
Yeah, what do you say to that?
I try to be super polite, so I can't say no. It's tough. It's tough for me to say no.
You're very patient.
Especially in the South here. I kind of just say, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're very patient.
And I just let it be. I let it go, for the most part. But I've had, like, over probably in the last 20 years, I've had probably half a dozen people come up to me and do the same thing. So.
Wow. So, okay, in a social situation, I know earlier you had mentioned one of the places that we go to trivia, there's several stairs that you walk up to get into the restaurant, and you've had several people ask you if you need help. Like, what, from an outsider's perspective, what is the most appropriate way to ask? And then maybe just let it go if you say no?
Yeah, most people get it, and they'll just say, hey, sir, do you need some help? And I'm like, no, thank you, but thank you for asking. I appreciate it. And I do. I'm very stubborn when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm very independent when it comes to getting upstairs or getting my Zinger wheelchair out of the back of my car or putting it into the car, because I still have that sense of I'm strong enough still to be able to do this. But I know probably one day down the line, it's going to come a time to where I'm just going to have to surrender some of my stubbornness, whether it's, hey, well, I can't use my feet anymore to be able to drive, so we're going to have to put, special things on the steering wheel in order for you to drive or whatever. But for now, it's one of those things where I'm so grateful, as my gratitude points back to, that I can still drive.
Sure.
I hate driving, by the way, but I can still do it. I mean, I don't like to drive long distances. Just around town.
You picked a rough area to be driving around in and live in, bro.
Terrible
as far as
drivers.
the driving goes.
Yeah.
Well, not to be funny or anything, but if you talk about terrible drivers here in Pensacola, I am one of those terrible drivers.
Really?
And I'm not even going to try to be funny, like, hey, I'm pretty bad. I'm a pretty bad driver. Not that I get in a lot of accidents or something like that, but I have a tendency to get distracted sometimes when, it's like, oh, shoot, I missed the turn. Yeah.
Right.
No, well, I so appreciate our friendship. I think you have contributed more to my perspective and my understanding of a lot of things, even just simply gratitude and being so grateful for some of the simple things that we might take for granted, like being grateful for being able to drive. Like that's something that when you said that earlier, like it was a perspective of, that's something that I don't think I would have mentioned as being grateful for. Yeah. So I so appreciate what you've added to my life and my perspective.
Oh my gosh.
And I think that you add that value.
I'm about to shed a tear here.
To just about everyone you meet. You really do. And I feel like your kindness and your gratitude projects farther than anything that I can see.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
I think your kindness hits people before they even can fully take in what they see when they look at you. I don't know. I almost feel like we've been watching Star Wars, like the shields. I almost feel like that's your kindness.
Oh.
Like projects out.
That was really good. That was really good.
Hey, I'm so glad that you're starting to use Star Wars references in your everyday.
Don't ask me anyone's name or planets or anything like that. But literally,
Holden would be so proud of you right
now. When they did that shield, the last one that we watched, I almost said it out loud. Like I kind of feel like that's almost like personified, like your kindness, your gratitude, your perspective is just, it's far reaching, like farther than you can even touch.
That's got to be some of and seriously, that is probably one of the nicest compliments I've ever received. And I can tell by your body language and your tone, it comes from something very genuine and very well thought out and super deep. Like I can hear the sincerity in your voice.
I truly mean it. And the reason why I wanted you on this podcast today is because I know the first couple of times I met you, I was trying to soak it all in and understand your perspective, and you give almost an unexpected perspective than what I would have imagined that you might have. And I'm very grateful for your perspective on life.
That's amazing, Jenna. I don't even know what to say about all that. I'm kind of surprised that you said that out loud.
Because you've had a fork in the road many times in life, to choose gratitude, to choose kindness, or to grow bitter and choose that path, and you haven't. You've gone so far to the gratitude and the kindness, and really you're very helpful to others, and I think you're a great friend. I'm really grateful to be able
Thank you so much.
to meet you. And it's just a random Tuesday night we went to trivia and met you.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Holden, I owe you pretty big. I posted about a week or so ago, it might have been 2 weeks. I got my free t-shirt from this podcast.
Hey.
And I had to show it off, and I wanted everybody to know that I love me some MattLaneFitness.
Thanks, brother.
And I love me some Jenna Lane. I really do. And I mentioned something about you have influenced me in such an uplifting and positive way. Like it has changed the trajectory of my life. and my lifestyle. And I can honestly tell you that I have never felt better in my life at this very moment in time.
Wow.
With just I feel strong, I feel happy, and I feel content.
Wow.
You know?
That's awesome.
And it's almost like I'm almost in a dream. It's like I have all these great friends, I have all this great family, and there's a lot of love. I can honestly tell you, I can write on a piece of paper 25 to 30 people right now that I could call up it right now and, hey man, I'm in a pickle. Can you help me out? They would help me out, not even ask any questions, you know? And golly days, one of my very best friends, Scott, used to always tell me for the last 30 or 40 years, he's like, if you could, at the end of your life, if you can count the number of friends, if you can get 5 friends that you can count on, you've lived a good life. And I can honestly tell you, 30 to 40 people, you know, I can't sit here and name them all, but I can't imagine life without friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would not be good for me. And I know, and it's because that I've always had an outgoing personality and I like to talk a lot, as you can tell. But I just want to add one other thing. And this has been the biggest influence on my life. When I was a small child, my great uncle, Lech Kellison, my parents divorced when I was about 11 or 12, and that stung me pretty bad, stung my whole family really rough. And it was a very, very bad transition for me because I idolized my father. I really did. He could do no wrong. He could walk on water kind of thing. And we didn't have a lot of money. We grew up pretty poor, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. And my uncle Lech would always be the guy that would come over and pick me up, take me to the high school football games, and give me $2 for the snack bar and bring me back home. And, you know, he always had a pocket full of mints or Jolly Ranchers in his pocket when I would go to church, you know. And he was always doing things for me, whether it was, hey, I want you to go on this trip to D.C. during my 8th grade year. I didn't have enough money to go to D.C. All my friends did. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I was about $75 short the night of, before it needed to be turned in. And my Uncle Lech walked up to my mother and he gave her some money and said, listen, I know Andy really wants to go on this trip, and I know he's short. Here's the money. Here's the rest of the money. And from things like that is why I try to do things for other people.
You've kept passing it on.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the core of my being, he set that in motion for me.
That's rad.
And right there, in that very moment, I remember saying to myself, I will never forget this.
Wow.
And if I'm ever in a position to help someone else out, I will do it with no regrets and no, hey, I paid for your meal tonight. What are you going to do for me kind of thing.
Yeah.
I do it out of the kindness of my heart because my great uncle, Lech Kellison, did it out of the kindness of his heart. He showed me the way. He showed me how a genuine person should be, you know. And that has always been the baseline for the way I have always tried to treat other people.
Just giving without expectation.
Exactly.
Well, you've absolutely given today here on this podcast. So I really, really appreciate you. And before we close this out, guys, if you do this, go on YouTube to the BTYE podcast and leave a comment on this episode. Andy is rad. So subscribe to that channel, and then also to the BTYE IG channel page. Subscribe to that. The first 5 people to do that, I'm gonna find who you are, and I'm gonna send you a free T-shirt, a free BTYE T-shirt. Andy is rad.
I'm gonna get on there right now.
No, you already have a shirt. You're good.
Hey, thanks again for having me on, guys.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, and I think so. How I like to end every episode is wrapping it up. Like, what's the core points that I think we can take away? And I think
that's what she said. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're getting ready for some office trivia.
Yeah, here we go.
Go ahead.
If I can really boil it down, I think the best way to describe this conversation is just to choose gratitude, to choose kindness, choose the high ground.
Choose to give.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'm still kind of in awe of what you said earlier, Jenna, and it means a lot to me. It really does.
It's so true. I'm not just making things up. Like these are the things I think about when I'm going down a rabbit hole, thinking about random stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's, I truly mean everything that I've said.
I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you too, Matt. I mean, you've been nothing but kind and just overwhelmingly positive.
Thanks, man.
Towards me, about me, around me. It's phenomenal. I just can't thank y'all both enough. I really am fortunate to consider you and Jenna my friends.
You're rad, Andy.
I mean, that is just, it means a ton. It means a ton.
Thanks, man.
To say, hey, Matt and Jenna, yeah, I know them, and I'm proud to be their friends,
Same here.
Yep, goes both ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man. Seriously, really appreciate you being on.
Oh, thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. Guys, comment the BTYE podcast YouTube channel. Andy is rad.
Andy is rad.
Subscribe to that channel and the IG channel, and I'm going to get you a free t-shirt, the first 5 of you. So That's it. We will talk to you guys next week.
This has been the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast. We want to thank you for listening and invite you to subscribe to the show as well. And follow Matt Lane Fitness on YouTube. Until next time, you don't have to be perfect. Just be better than yesterday every day.